Hey Burnett, so good to see you again. I hope you are having such a great week and just enjoying the beautiful weather that we've had. Hopefully it hasn't been too cold for you. We have a great service for you today. I'm so excited to bring you our Life Sunday. There's going to be some great videos, some great testimonies. Pastor Tim is going to be explaining some of those. Just before we get into it, I want to let you know about one quick announcement. On March the 1st, this is for all parents and anybody that has children in general. We are doing what we've called the workshop. Pastor Quinn has worked very hard, and we are going to be putting on a workshop March 1st, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be right here at the church. We have Nate Searle coming to do a workshop, and it's talking about our current generation and anxiety that's inflicting them, and how to parent through them, how to love through it, how to grandparent through it. So please join us. All the information is on our website, or you can reach out to Pastor Quinn. Her email is quinn@burnettchurch.com. So any information that you want to know, send her an email. And we are just so excited that we are putting this on to equip families, equip parents, equip grandparents, or anybody involved in the lives of our kids. So we'd hope that you'd come and join us. And let's get ready for service today.
Well, like we said a couple times this morning, it's Life Sunday. We do this pretty well every time there's a fifth Sunday in the month. If you haven't experienced one of these before, we kind of treat it like a family reunion, which is why the kids are here with us. It's okay, they're going to make noise. I swear to you, I don't hear them when that happens. When I'm up here, I'm in some sort of zone that cancels out all the distractions and noises, so please don't be in any way concerned about that. But it's also a bit of a unique thing. We haven't done this before, where we've had Life Sunday and our annual general meeting kind of at the same time. Annual general meetings are a funny thing for me in the life of a church because they're not actually biblically mandated, they're government mandated, which puts them in a peculiar place, at least from my perspective. And one of the things is that we have to differentiate between members and non-members in those spaces. And to me, if you're here and you're participating, then you're here and you're participating, and I don't see members and non-members. And some of the things we would want to share with our membership that would normally go in a meeting, we want to share with everyone because it's not just the member's story, it's everybody's story. And so we're kind of blurring the lines today a little bit between an annual general meeting and Life Sunday and all the things that we do therein. Normally, I would get up during a meeting and give you some kind of report about the last year. And so this morning's message is pseudo-message and pseudo-report all rolled into one, again, because I wanted to share it with as many people as humanly possible. So, with all those provisos in place, let me ask you a question. Is anybody else sort of conflicted when they have to share something that's good in your life because you feel like maybe you're bragging about yourself? Does anybody like that? Does anybody have a really hard time accepting a compliment? Does anybody like that? I find myself like that a lot, where somebody would try and give me a compliment and I would say, oh, no. Like none of it was something that I should receive. And honestly, that's just a kind of false humility, but it still rears its head up and becomes a problem. And so getting up and sharing all the good things that have happened in our church makes me a little bit uncomfortable. And I just want to say that out loud and out front, admit that to you. The truth is, though, it has been a really, really great year here. And as I thought about how to tell you about that, two things came to mind. First, we're a church that loves to tell stories. In fact, our vision is that our lives together would tell a story of Christ's love that the world wants to hear. And in a lot of ways, I feel like that is the story of our past year. But it doesn't just happen through me or through the staff. It happens in the lives of regular people. So I'm going to share a story with you, which is actually a Jesus story, hopefully to set the table for a couple of our friends and our congregation members to tell you about the good things that have happened at Burnett. One of the things about my role is that I end up being sort of like the chief story collector. When good things happen, people will sometimes email me or catch me on a Sunday morning or talk to me. And unfortunately, those stories don't always make it back to you. So there were a few stories I wanted to tell this morning that I think were worth sharing in the words of somebody other than me. I wanted you to hear some of those stories from them. That's going to come in a few minutes. For now, as I was thinking about how to wrap up and how to talk about our last year and how to share a story with you guys, stories from Jesus came to mind. Because Jesus was a really effective storyteller, right? In the Bible, we call those stories parables. Those parables made up a huge portion of Jesus' teaching. In fact, it's funny because at some point in Jesus' ministry, it almost seems like he abandons what are sort of traditional ways of teaching in favor of parables. Now, parables weren't uncommon, but Jesus, scholars will point out quickly, used parables more than most teachers of his age. And it's funny, if you follow, especially in Matthew, it's really easy to see that Jesus comes out of the gate doing what you would think Jesus should do. He preaches, right? We have the Sermon on the Mount really early on in Matthew. Matthew wants to show Jesus as a teacher. And the people respond, well, really favorably to Jesus. They're like, wow, this guy teaches in a way that has authority that we haven't heard before. But what's interesting is that Jesus gathers a crowd, but he doesn't actually increase the number of disciples he has after the Sermon on the Mount, at least not substantially. And then Jesus goes about doing the second thing that you might think that Jesus was supposed to do, which is healing people, right? Like if a church was about preaching the word and healing people, we would think that was a really effective church. And you would think that that would tick the needle in terms of people wanting to follow Jesus. But what's interesting is that the healings don't really turn into disciples either. They turn into a crowd, and a crowd is a good way to recruit disciples. But there's a difference between a crowd watching on and people really getting it and really buying in and really connecting with Jesus. And so Jesus changes the way that he goes about it. First, he changes his audience. He starts going to the tax collectors and sinners, which everybody thought was a really, really strange place to go, because why would you go there to collect disciples? But then Jesus starts to basically, he doesn't do much preaching. After about Matthew chapter 13, there aren't many preachers recorded of Jesus. He doesn't continue in the way that he was because, well, if you read the parables closely, you begin to see that Jesus was, well, a bit annoyed, really. His tone changes. The way that he goes about teaching changes. And he says, listen, secrets of the kingdom have been given to some people, but not to others. And the first story that Jesus tells in Matthew 13 is the parable of the sower. You've all heard this before, right? I'm going to summarize it. I'm not going to read it in its entirety this morning. I'm trying to move quickly because we have all the kids with us. So one of our values on Life Sunday is to be 59 minutes and 59 seconds or less. And so I'm going to try my best to do that. I've got 3 videos to show you, so I gave myself very little time this morning. But the parable of the sower, right, is the parable of a farmer who goes out to sow his seed. And when he sows his seed falls on 4 different kinds of soil. You can read about this again in Matthew chapter 13. The really important one is that the 4th kind of soil that Jesus says the farmer puts his seed in is good soil. And it produces a crop. And it grows. And in some real sense, I feel like the story of our church this year was seeking that soil together. Whether it was in our services and just kind of finding our voice and who we were going to be coming out of COVID. Remember that thing that happened like a while ago? Or if it was behind the scenes with the leadership board having conversations about trying to find who we are now, because we are some amalgamation of who Burnett Church has been and who Burnett Church is becoming. And so we were looking for places that resonated with us, that we felt like God was saying, sow your seed here. Because if you sow your seed here, you'll see a return, 30, 60, and 100-fold. When we look at the parables, we're always supposed to be looking at them for a couple of ways. What was Jesus saying? But where are we in the parable as well? So while you could say that Jesus is the farmer in the parable of the sower, you could also say that as a church, it's our responsibility to seek out the places to sow your seed. And these stories that I'm about to share with you, I think will highlight 3 places in our church's life that seed has been growing this year. And first of all, we say all the time, we're a come-as-you-are church. And what we mean by that is we want to be an accessible church. We want to be a place where you don't have to abandon everything that you are before you walk through the doors to be a part of the church. That wherever you are on your spiritual journey, we want to join with you in journey. You don't have to talk differently or dress differently or act differently. Well, depends on how you act, I guess. But not act very differently, not in a weird sort of way, to be able to be a part of this community. And what you will hear from at least two of the people that you're going to hear from in just a second is that welcoming attitude has been huge for them in their spiritual life. And because of that welcoming attitude, the church is growing. This time last year, on this Sunday last year, we had about 130 people total in the building. I don't know what the number is right now. I know that in the first 2 weeks of this month, there were more than 200 people in the building. And that, to me, just says, look, we're helping to build a place where people can come and feel welcome and get on their spiritual journey. That's part of our story. The second thing that I think we've seen really positive fruit in is that the church has been generous this past year. You guys have given sacrificially, and that giving helps us to give on your behalf, but give in bigger ways than we could potentially just do on our own. I mean, I know I don't have $15,000 sitting in my bank account to do a hamper program at Christmas time. And you'll hear how those gifts came together to bless a particular individual in a time of need. And the third thing is that we're committed to making disciples. We've been talking a lot this year about the need and our belief for us to do life together and in community. And you'll hear someone who during COVID moved, needed to find a new church, and has gone through the sometimes challenging process of finding people to do life in community with. And that in turn is motivating them to give and be generous and serve in their neighborhood. Those might seem like really simple things, and I suppose in some sense they are. But so is sowing seed, right? It was a common activity that the farmers did in Jesus' day. So I want you to hear these three stories, and I'll come and wrap it up after we're finished.
My name is Grant. I work here actually in the church, but not on staff. I run a business, rent some space here, one of the rooms, and I basically work with musicians and create and build gear for them, which is kind of fun. I've been coming to Burnett now for maybe about a year and a half with my wife Micah and our two kids, Asher and Wilder. They're the noisy ones. It's actually been really cool getting to be a part of Burnett and slowly getting to know everyone here. I've really enjoyed it. I guess a bit about my story. Me and my family moved over in the middle of 2020 during something called COVID. And we came over from Australia where we had been for the last 13, 14 years, something like that. And we came home because of COVID, wanted to be around family and all that. And I actually met Tim, the pastor here. You may have heard of him. Tim is a great guy. We did not meet because of church though. We met because of music, both loving guitar, and got to know Tim firstly because of music, and then found out he was the new pastor here at Burnett, and quickly got into, I guess, the topic around theology and faith, beliefs, doubt. And I had, and still have, a whole lot of questions that I just don't have answers for, a whole lot of doubts that I can't seem to resolve. And my favorite thing about Tim and Melissa and the staff here at church is that they weren't shocked by that. It wasn't a black spot on my church resume or being able to come here and attend. I was allowed to come, be involved in church, not having everything figured out, which to me is probably one of the key reasons why I still come, is because I don't have to have a perfect and, I don't know how to word it, is I don't have to have a perfect well thought out, perfectly constructed, and have answers for everything. I can come with my questions, I can come with my doubts, and just as I am. And I think that's one of the favorite things I love about Burnett, and has not always been my experience at other churches. So if you're hearing this and you're like, well, of course that's how a church should be, it's just not the case at every church and in every community. And so I really appreciate about that, both around the staff and you as a congregation, that I'm just allowed to come and be who I am and figure it out along the way.
My name is Crystal. I've got 4 children of my own, and I came to Burnett about a year and a half to 2 years ago, I suppose. No, just before COVID. I don't know how long that was. So, and I came to Burnett because the church I had been attending for approximately 7 years didn't feel comfortable there anymore. So I started just before COVID looking around for a different church where I would feel comfortable. And most of my life I've been looking for a church that felt like home, because I hear people talking about how, oh, their church is great, and I've never had that experience. So I tried out a couple other churches, went to a couple services, and this church is right down the road from me, and I drive past it every day, and I never really thought to come here. And I had been praying a lot about finding a new home church, and when I was doing a search of, churches in my area, Burnett came up. So I checked out the website, and I thought I would come and give it a chance, and I came here, and it felt comfortable. So I started attending regularly, and everybody was there's just a very different feeling here than any of the other churches I've ever been to, and I've been to churches everywhere from Texas to here. And there's just a very welcoming, comfortable feeling here, whether you've been here a day or you've been here for much longer. It's just always comfortable, and this feels like home. November was a really rough month. Typically, my bills are all good. Everything runs smoothly in my house, but I guess like most people, we're all kind of like one paycheck away from being homeless, if you miss that paycheck. So in November, there was a few things that happened. One that significantly affected my finances. We had roofers fixing a leak or something. I guess the whole roof ended up needing to be replaced. So we had roofers replacing the roof, and they were using blow torches on the roof, and they caught the ducting that runs into the back of the dryer on fire. That ducting in my house runs down through my attic into my youngest son's room, and then through his closet, and then into the back of the dryer. In that closet was, besides a bunch of linens, because it was the only place to store it, was a bunch of his toys and a lot of my late husband's belongings. The whole closet, and subsequently a lot of his room, was destroyed. So all of that stuff needed to be replaced. All of the bedding that I had in there, all the linen stuff had to be replaced. And I don't have homeowners insurance or home renters insurance or whatever. So my landlord's home insurance doesn't cover any of the damaged property, my damaged property. So that was the financial hit that we took in November, as well as, all the extra stuff for cleaning and all the stuff that needed to be done. Being that it was so close to Christmas, things were really tight financially. So I got a phone call from my son's school, Alouette Elementary, from the principal, who they were aware of the fire, and the principal asked if I would be okay. They had a, she said, a basket. She said a basket. We have a basket for you if you're okay with accepting it. And so I said, yeah, okay, not thinking, too much of it. And she said, okay, I'll meet you when you drop the boys off. So I got to the school and I got this she gave me this purple Purdy's bag. And I put it on my front seat and I said, thank you. The boys got out, they went to school, that was done. And then I got to work into the underground parking lot and I opened the Purdy's bag and I reached in and the first thing that I grabbed was a card. And so I, took the card out of the envelope and opened it up, and there was a gift card in there for Superstore, and I moved the gift card and read the card, and it was from Burnett Church. And I thought that was that was pretty cool. It kind of felt like God, God saying, look, your family's taking care of you. It just felt really good to open that card up and see something from a place that's become very important in my life. Coming to church is not a chore anymore. It's something I look forward to every Sunday, and I've never had that. I've never felt accepted really anywhere, and Burnett, I feel accepted. And that's a really nice feeling.
My name is Jim, and we've been at Burnett pretty much, during COVID actually is when we sort of started not attending because you couldn't go to church during COVID, but we did start watching online, and then we started coming here in person once the doors opened up again and people started coming back. My wife and I attend, and we live with my son and his wife and their 3 kids, and we very often bring our grandchildren with us. You'll see us pushing the stroller down the street, so we live close, and we bring them to come to Sunday school. And so it's been just over a year now, I guess it'll be about a year, just over a year since we started coming in person and being part of the fellowship here. So there were a couple things about Burnett that we enjoyed. First of all, was when we did check in with the online services, appreciated the worship, and we were attracted to just some of the teaching. It was an interim pastor at that time, and we knew they were searching for, had started the search for a new pastor, and just appreciated the approach online, which obviously is different than in person, but it was enough for us to say, yeah, it's in our neighborhood, and we like what we see online. It sort of fits with what we are comfortable with. And then when we came, we were just, I think, pleasantly surprised by the friendliness of the people that have been here. And as we've come to learn, this church has a long history, and there are people that have been here a long time, and yet there's a lot of connecting, like just, saying hello and greeting people as they come in the door. And we were able to connect with, I was able to connect with Tim kind of right away after he started, and yeah, we just felt comfortable almost from the beginning. The priority was actually finding a church in our neighborhood, and so we drive by Burnett all the time because we live just around the corner in the Chilcotin neighborhood on Alpine Crescent, and we just decided that's where we'd start. We didn't feel like we needed to go a long ways or have to drive. We just felt like, you know, being able to go to church in your neighborhood was a real advantage. And so we'd start by checking them out, which we did online, as I mentioned before, and then came when they opened the doors. We knew from previous church experience that being part of a small group would be a great way to get connected with the church in a quicker way and get to know a smaller group of people in more in depth. And so we started down that road, and I remember having a conversation with Tim, and he was saying they were going to get things going, and there was this possibility of a group, but it just seemed to take forever to kind of get the thing off the ground. And we were thankful when earlier this past year in September we were able to get something started with Ernie and Judy Dakin and some others, and have really enjoyed getting to know people at that level, love the weekly connection. And we've also been using Pathways as our kind of the basis of our study, and have gone through spiritual gifts, and now we're looking at finances, giving, and just love the in-depth way in which it looks at Scripture and pulls out principles of Scripture, and the discussion we have around what that's like. You know, how does that impact us as individuals and as a church? And so that's been a great experience so far, and looking forward to much more of that as well. Yeah, just as we think about the future, we're excited about keeping our kids involved and the grandkids, and excited about getting involved here now that we're getting to know people, and we're loving that process, and love the potential that's here, that exists at Burnett, with both the facility itself and just the desire that people have here to do ministry and to be involved in people's lives, and would love to see how this works out with it being in our community. You know, can we reach out into our community where we live and be able to bring and have impact on people's lives and have them come to the church and be part of that. So just really looking forward to being involved and becoming a sort of an integral part of Burnett and the future of Burnett and its ministries.
There's a whole ton of thank yous embedded in there. There are thank yous for the worship team who came here when nobody else could come here and put videos together so that we could keep worshiping during COVID. There are thank yous here for the simple act of smiling at somebody and saying, "Welcome to church," and taking that step across an aisle and introducing yourself to someone. There's so many thank yous to share that I don't even want to start to go down the road because I'm sure I'd forget someone. Hopefully, in those stories, you heard something that touched your heart, that encouraged you. I want to share just one last little detail I came across when I was studying that parable this week. And here it is. It's interesting because you read the parable and automatically we think of, like, you know, there are normal seasons of planting and growing in every part of the world. I know there's a number of farmers in our congregation, so you know what those rhythms and seasons are like here. In Jerusalem, in Galilee, you would normally plant and sow seed early in the year, January, okay? And I think that's what most people think of. Oh, when Jesus tells this story, he's telling like a very common farming story. I think we get that, we assume that. But actually, one of the commentators that I read said, the whole detail of like one of the types of seed not making it because of the scorching heat. See, here's the thing. It would be really, really rare to have scorching heat in January, February in Galilee. Very, very rare. And so this commentator said, there's a growing community of people believing that actually what Jesus' audience would have assumed is that this farmer was farming at an abnormal time of year. that he actually would have been going for a second seeding in the year. If the first seeding took generally the first half of the year to come to harvest, you could sow seeds again in June, July, and look for a late year harvest. But it was very uncommon. Why? Because of that scorching heat. See, the only way for the late harvest to come to fruition was if God sent an unusual blessing of rain to the region. So the assumption was if you planted in the back, you were probably throwing that seed away. But in Jesus' mind, see, betting on the fact that God would show up because we did something a little different than everybody else would do was a remarkable truth to me. You know, because we say we value things like innovation and hospitality. We say we're trying to create a come-as-you-are environment. And I don't know, I'll take people at their word, whether that is abnormal or normal. But in seeking to do something that God needs to bless in order to grow, man, that excites me. And I hope that it excites you. So, in terms of vision for this coming year, what you'll see if you come to the AGM in a little bit, when we present a budget and we ask the church congregation to join us on mission through generosity and commitment and servanthood and all of those things, really what we're saying this year is if it isn't broke, don't fix it. God has been with our church this year. We've seen a lot of positive growth and momentum in areas that we think really, really matter. So we're just going to stick with this simple plan that we have. We're going to continue to double down and invest in this environment. We're going to invest in our youth group. We want to hire somebody to help take that over so that will free Pastor Melissa up to do some extra communications work that we need so that people know that we're here and know that we're doing and know that we want to be a blessing to them. We're going to continue to invest in the lives of our kids as Pastor Quinn continues to grow our kids program. And we're going to continue to invest in disciple making through things like Pathway and small groups and men's and women's ministry. And I hope this is what this is all about. It's an invitation. It's an invitation to come and be a part of it. That if there's a lot of thank yous to give in those videos, then there's a lot more work to be done and a lot more thank yous to see and receive in the future. And I am personally really excited about that. I hope that you will join us in being excited about it and participating. Church, one more big thank you. One more call to this morning. Would you just stand with us? We're going to sing one more song. This is a song we sing frequently. It's called Do It Again. And really, again, God, if you would come this year and do something similar to what you did last year, man, would we be blessed that you poured out rain on this little patch of ground that we're trying to seed and multiply things to your will and for your glory. Let's sing together.
All right, well, that's it for service. I hope you were blessed by that and just seeing all the things that are going on in the life of our church. You heard 3 amazing testimonies today about lives that are being transformed, and you get to be a part of it. You're on the front row cheering us on, and you're with us. It's us all participating in the story that God is telling, and so we're so excited. We love and miss you. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, I'm Jordan, and you can reach any of our staff at our emails, which is just our first name at burnettchurch.com. Well, church, we love, we miss you. Hope you have a fantastic week, and we'll see you very, very soon. Bye for now.